Hello and happy Monday, everyone. And thank you so much for joining us in today's Demystifying Post Productions webinar. And in today's webinar, we are joined by Lionel Vicidomini, our master trainer at Maxon. Before we start, do you guys hear me fine? I'm just making sure if the sounds is not a problem today. Let me check.
Looks like it.
Seems to be fine. Thank you so much. And in these sessions, we are joined by Lionel. And Lionel will showcase how to use ACES in Cinema 4D through Redshift. And he also will reveal the importance of incorporating ACES framework in your workflow. And perhaps at the end, when the time allows, we will also step out to After Effects as well to see how to do the basic setup in After Effects. And also, I would like to point you out to our YouTube page in case that if you are missing the last sessions. So if you want to catch up with the last sessions or watch another webinar that is hosted by us, Maxon Training Team, you can just simply go to YouTube and type in Maxon Training Team and then go to the playlist and catch up with the webinar. And if you would like to refresh your memory, your knowledge about Maxon products, there's elementary knowledge tests that you can follow. And you can simply go there by going to www.maxon.net/certifications. And you can take the Cinema 4D assessment or any Redshift products. There are also two comprehensive Cinema 4D tests and also a trainer certifications if you would like to participate. Also, if you want to check out the upcoming events hosted by Maxon, you can simply go to maxon.net/events. And I would also to point you out to the Udemy page where Lionel has his courses. There's a ongoing sales at the moment. So if you would like to sharpen your knowledge about Cinema 4D, I think Lionel has 4 series in his Udemy store. And I think I paste the link in the chat sections of the webinar page, of the webinar interface. So if you go to the chat sections and follow the link, you can visit the Udemy store from Udemy page from Lionel courses. And also, not to forget to mention that if you haven't used the code yet, you can still get a free t-shirt by going to Maxon merch store link in the PDF file that you can find in the handout sections of the webinar interface. And simply use the color ACES as password to enter the store. And in the store, you can select one of the Ask the Trainer t-shirt, and it's only valid for the Ask the Trainer t-shirt, and it's only valid for one order. But you need to pay for the shipping cost, which is around about $4. So without me speaking too much, let us hand out the microphone to Lionel, and let's start the sessions. Sounds good?
Yeah.
Awesome.
I'm ready.
So Lionel, I'll make you presenter. There you go. You supposed to be able to share your screen now.
Can you see it?
Yes.
All right. So it works. Okay, perfect.
Nice.
So yeah, welcome everybody. We're going to talk about ACES, OCO, how to make it work in Cinema 4D and After Effects. So this first session, we're going to see how to set it up in Cinema 4D and some user case where it works the best. I mean, why do we need to use ACES? And then we will see how to work with the single file with no compositing, and just to load it properly inside After Effects to do some basic color correcting. Next week, we will see how to do a deep compositing pipeline, how to work with AOV and recreate your entire beauty path, and how to add effect and so on. So this week, it's already how to work with ACs and so on. So you have already seen that with last week with Tanasis, with Nozman, who explained the whole color theory, how it works and so on. So today it's more about how to make it work inside Cinema 4D in After Effects. Okay, so yeah, I will just start. I'm going to stop my webcam because you don't really need to see me. And you see my screen, and let's go. So I'm going to launch the render view to see what we are going to work on. And I'm going to deactivate here. Okay, so this is the demo file that's been provided by the Redshift team to better see how ACs work and how to manipulate it. So I'm going to deactivate those two. Okay, so this is a simple bunny sitting inside a corner box. So a corner box is a closed box where we can work on global illumination, how to see how color blend and so on. And already it looks weird because this is the user case where we have two light, one red light, one blue light. Okay, and you can see the mixing of the color is already interesting because the wall are red on the left and blue on the right side. And we have some color mixture that we couldn't achieve, or it will be very difficult to achieve with the traditional linear workflow. So I'm going to activate the neutral light to better see the scene. Yeah, so it was red on the left and green on the right, sorry. And we have also a color chart to see how everything is working together. Okay, so first, you're working with ACES because this is the default setup in Redshift since a few months now. So maybe you don't know it, but you're already working with ACES if you leave it as it is when you open a new scene. And that you can see if you go to the render settings, you go to Redshift, you have to go to the advanced tab, and then in globals, you have all the settings. That's the only settings we're going to see today. Okay, so this is the default, and we have the rendering space, which is ACES CG, sRGB for the display, and for the ViewTransform, it's ACES SDR video. Okay, and we have also those two buttons, which I will explain later. So that means that it works. You are already working in ACES. Okay, so if we take a look at the scene, we can see that we have some colors. Everything looks great. Something I'm going to do right now is use control, and using control, you can see we have a box displaying the color value. Okay, so that's interesting because we can see two values. Actually 4 values, but I'm looking at the leftmost value, and the ground here looks very white, but is not white. Actually, the left value is the real value before the color transform of ACES, and after the second value is the color after the color transform. And we can see this is very bright, but this is not pure white, and that's one of the main advantage of ACES. It's better to deal with highlight, very bright highlight. So before, we can see we have a burnt area that are too bright, brighter than white. And after the transform, we do have some details that were lost before. Okay, so let's take a look at how this scene would fare with the old linear workflow. To load the the old behavior, the legacy behavior, you just need to change the rendering color space here to the working space, scene linear rec 709 sRGB. And then here the view is going to be unturned map. Okay, and now we can see this is much brighter and pure white actually, and we have some burnt area. We can see here on the ground, some of the sphere are just too bright. We lost some colors on those here. You can see here all the orange and the yellow tend to be the same. Here the purple value are pretty bad also. About the bunny, let's hide the polygon to see the bunny. The bunny is mostly blue. There is not much of the purple shade on him anymore. The sphere here is burnt and so on. So this is the legacy behavior. If you load a whole scene, it's going to look like that. So usually what we do is just lower the intensity of our IR light, or maybe lower the albedo of the material on the ground and so on. So we would do some tricks to avoid that kind of image because, yeah, well, it's ugly, it's too much, it's too bright and so on. And now with ACs, we won't have this problem. That's one of the main advantage. So if I go back to our ACs, so let's go back here, working space ACs CG. We can see a result already, but then you need to go to ACs SDR, and now we are set. Okay, and we have our bright ground, but it's not pure white. Maybe when you saw that earlier, you thought it was pure white, but you can see now it's not. And we also have some color back. Here we can see the orange, you can see here the purple, differentiate for those one, and so on. All the overall color are better. Also, the bunny has more of the purple tint. We can see it on the background. Also, yeah, something I didn't mention, but you can see on the left, we have better highlight on the wall. You can see here on the green wall, it's very interesting because it's smooth gradient. It's very nice. It doesn't go to the yellow very often. When you had green texture, over bright, you would go to the yellow. And this is controlled here thanks to ACs. Another advantage is if I'm going to take my main light here, I'm going to increase the exposure, you will see that it holds pretty well. So at some point it's going to be burnt, but actually not really. So let's see here, control, we can see we're still not in the pure white value. So the image look brighter, but is it overexposed? Yeah, a bit, but it could pass. It's all right. It's still, I would say, acceptable. Let's see what happens if we go back to the linear color space. So let's go back here, linear, let's go to untone mapped. Okay, and this is now garbage, as you can see. We have some ugly highlights here. This is yellow, this is green, and then it's a yellow. We have lost many other colors on the ground. It's too bright. I mean, you can't even differentiate here the sphere in the background. This one is pure white, is going to, it's, well, you can tell already from the background and the sphere. So yeah, it's pretty bad. And also here, you can see here this shape. So it doesn't work anymore. It doesn't work anymore. Whereas in ACs, it does. Let's just go back here. I wouldn't say that it's a beautiful picture, but I mean, well, why not? Why not? It's a bit too bright, but we can accept that. And with linear, it was just ugly. You see here, we can see very well the sphere. It's very impressive, the difference between the background and then also the background is still retaining some of the blue color of the rabbit. Okay, so this is obviously a test scene, meaning that it's exaggerated. I mean, you're not going to have a picture with the blue rabbit inside a red and green room, but just to show you that it holds pretty well. Okay, so let's do another test. What happens if I use some weird light? So here I'm going to activate those two lights on the right and on the left. And those lights here, you can see I'm using a very strong color. Okay, so this is normally a big no-no. You don't do that. I mean, you don't use almost pure color for lighting. Okay, so this one is almost pure red. This one, the other one, is almost pure blue. That would be a mistake usually. And you can see here, again, the picture is going to hold pretty well. We can see we have an interesting blend of color. We still see some gradients. Nothing is too bright. Nothing is too dark either. So it looks interesting. I wouldn't say it look beautiful, but it's very impressive that it holds because those are extreme conditions. Let's see very quickly what happens if I put back to the linear workflow and turn map. You can see how different it looks and how wrong it looks. It's not that bad, I would say, but it's very strange how the blend of color are working. This is not accurate. I mean, if, in real world, if you're going to mix blue and red color, you're not going to have that kind of yellowish tint. Remember that the wall is green, so it's very weird. This is very weird, very wrong. If you're looking after a certain look, well, it's it doesn't work. It doesn't work. So let's go back here again to the ACCG and let's go to our ACs. Okay, and actually, yes, there was some problem. Now you can see here the different result, the good result. Okay, so also it's interesting if we, in this scene, for example, if I'm going to activate the bloom, we can see we have some of the color of the bloom. So this light here is tinted by our bloom. This one also, the bloom looks better also. I'm not going back to the Rec 709, the linear workflow. You can trust me on this. It behaved better. Also, if I use the streak, you can see the blending of color still is interesting. And also because we have more room to color correct, we can just use here the color control. Let's use the photographic exposure, for example. And if I just use here the f-stop, I can brighten or make it dimmer like that. You can see again the color are rating very well. Let's activate our polygon here to see the scene also. You can see here the gradient is still mostly black and white. It's just tinted by the whole scene. So it just works. Also, when I go back, I go to a very bright area, the color are going to behave like they should. Here you can see we still have some different hue for those two. If I go this way, it holds pretty well. Maybe let's see if I go back to the main light, this one, which is the neutral light. And here you can see how the color are going to react. The yellow is still yellow, the green is still green, and so on. There is no weird color shift. So again, and I promise you, I'm going to go to a nicer scene after that. But let's see what happens if I go to the linear Rec 709 and unturn map to see how it works here. You can see already that those two tint here, those two gradient are lost. You see the almost gray is lost, and I haven't even already pumped up the light. If I go back here, increase, you can see again the green is going to yellow. That shouldn't do that. You can see also those two are going to equalize. This one is losing its tint very, very quickly. So all color are behaving badly. The worst is the cyan. I mean, if you already have that problem of a cyan, the cyan is breaking very, very fast. You see how weird it looks? Those two here, That doesn't make any sense. All this doesn't make any sense. And if we go back to the ACs CG, okay, I'm going to reload just to be sure. All right, yeah, you can see it's mostly very bright, but we still have a slight amount of the hue, or the original hue, and the cyan is looking like overbright cyan. Okay, so yes, obviously you're not going to lighten your scene this way to overexpose everything, but that means that we have room for color correction, and that will be very interesting later on if we do some color correction. Okay, so let's see another user case before I jump to some other topic. That's it for this file for our Brave Bunny. Let's go to this scene. So this scene is provided by Yange. I don't know if I pronounce his name well. He's a very, very talented Maxon artist. And you have several of his scene inside the library, the content, the asset browser here. If you look here, you type "Save the Princess," you will find it. But you will find it with the old material system. So we converted this to Redshift. So let's go to the render view. Let's activate. So it's going to take a while, not very long, because it is a very heavy scene. A lot of reflection, a lot of colors. And here it is. Okay, and this has already some color correction, and you can see all the color are looking good. I mean, I have worked with this scene on with the old workflow, and it would break very quickly if you change too much of the scene. So just to explain here, this is mostly thanks to our here the postfix. So if I deactivate everything, this is a basic file, so it looks good already. But what's interesting is using all this, we can get it even better. So first, the color control. There is something important to know about it. I'm sorry, about the photographic exposure. Then we will see the color control. So the photographic exposure, you just have some kind of a trap, something to beware. You can use it, but with ACs, it's really recommended to allow overexposure to the max, because this was the old way here, the allow overexposure, to manage burnt iris, okay? And since ACs is going to take care of burnt iris, you don't need it anymore. So you just pump this one to 1, because if you don't do that, if you go here, you can see we're going to lose all the strong highlights, and the image look more dull. It's not that interesting. And here the neon on the topmost of the image is really less interesting. If I go back here to allow overexposure to 1, you can see this is much better. Okay, and then you can use the vignetting, which is still interesting to just darken the corner of the image. I like it quite a lot. Okay, then the color control is going to work, because if you're just going to add some contrast, again, it's going to hold very well, as you can see. That's really what's magic about ACs. You have so much room and control to use that. If you have already used the color control and so on, you know that it go overboard very quickly when you use it. And then we have the bloom working like it should. You can see this beautiful bloom. It just spread nicely and so on. It works better. It's more evenly distributed than with the rectilinear 709, the old linear workflow. And then you can just try here with the bloom threshold. And because we didn't, you're working with stronger highlight, you can use the bloom threshold, ensuring that only the very bright area here are going to work. And we could use instead the streak. Streak is going to add some kind of star shape on the image. Very interesting also. You can even use both at the same time. Okay, so what's cool again with ACs is in this scene is I can work with my neon, which is right here. So the neon are just cylinder area light in cylinder mode. So to look like neon, of course. And here I can work with the temperature of color. So I'm going to take all of them. And this is a bluish temperature. So if I go stronger here, you will see this is more blue. And you can see some of the blue tint creeping in. If I go to a very low temperature, you can see it's going to get warmer, more reddish. And you can see here the gradient, the rainbow gradient on the wall is holding pretty well. And we could even go wild and just change the color and try some of the very deep color that we have seen earlier. So maybe let's try some green. And you can see it just works. I mean, last week it was the point of Thanasis when he was showing how he could get some very strong red, green, almost green, flash green from Matrix kind of light. And you can see here it works just like that. It's wonderful. Now we can go to very deep blue. So deep blue, we're going to lose some power for the light. So we can increase here with the exposure. And again, it's going to work. You see, we have this all bluish tint in the whole scene. And we could, of course, try some purple. So we have now so much creative control over all this. Okay, so that's the main interest. So actually, you don't really need to know how it works, meaning that just by letting that at the right value, the default value, you're going to have some very good light behavior, which is so much easier to work with. I mean, I wouldn't go back to the old linear workflow if I had to, because this one is so much better. There is just a few catch we're going to see. First, about how to load your texture. You will see it has changed a bit. And the biggest issue is how to export that to After Effects if you want to do some color correction. Okay, so we're going to see that at the end. But first, we're going to talk about texture.
Lionel,
Yes.
sorry to interrupt you. Before you moved on, do you have space for some questions?
Yes, of course. Yes, good idea.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right then. The idea is I will collect the questions from the chat, and from time to time, when you finish with your topic, then I will ask you if you can answer some questions. Is that fine?
Yeah, cool.
Perfect. So yeah, there's questions from our friend Isaac, and he's wondering how important it is a color chart, how important a color chart is in for color corrections in 3D space. Is there something like things that you used a lot?
Well, no, for this example, well, me not too much because I don't do VFX and so on. I'm really a motion grapher, so I do motion design and so on. I included the color chart just before to see how the color are behaving. But yes, that's something that's used when you're working in VFX and so on.
All right, so it's mainly for you just to have like a objective measurement of the color. Am I correct?
Yes, in the last example, it was to see how the color are going to shift and so on. It was a good example to see how well ACs work to respect the color. And there is some specific workflow if you want to have very precise color, particular color in a workflow. using some of the color profile provided with ACES. Maybe I'll have time to show that. I don't know.
All right.
We'll see.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for the answer, Lionel. And some participants also are wondering if the project files is also available for sharing, especially the Rabbit one.
Yeah, the Rabbit one is already available, but actually you have to download it to set it up and so on. So I will provide the scene already set up. It's much easier.
Thank you so much. And also, Drake is reaching out if asking if honeycomb grid, how do you call it, scene from the previous webinar is also available for sharing.
Which one? The
honeycomb grid with for neon color.
The one Thanasis used?
No, from the previous webinar, from the multidimensional MoGraph webinar. But let's take that on the let's take that offline, right? So
okay, yeah.
I think it's better to proceed and move forward with the topics.
All right. Okay.
Cool.
So let's stop that and well, let's see a very important subject. Yeah, half an hour we just fine. So yeah, this is a file. Well, it's an old file which already have. So I just left it as it is because when I load it, because it was made a few months ago, 6 months ago, you can see the rendering color space is linear Rec 7i on tone map. Okay, this is normal. So if I want to convert it to ACES, I need to again ACES CG and then here ACES. That's all you have to do. Okay, then I'm going to actually delete all the texture except the ground. And let's deactivate this one. So on, I'm going to recreate those textures. So let's delete this one and so on. Okay, so for the shader ball, I'm going to use a texture which has been taken from Quixel. So let me show you. This is those texture here. So they don't look like much. You will see they're pretty nice. We have a albedo, we have a metalness, normal, and roughness. Okay. So if you want to create metal, you just have to beware of few stuff. And what that was already the case before ACES, but with ACES it's even more important. So let's put this matter on our shader ball, and I'm going to the shader graph. Okay, and I'm going to load our different picture, and those are the one. Okay, and I need, well, actually I don't need this one, but I'm going to load it anyway. Let's take those 4, let's put them here. Okay, so this is not about texture, but just to set the correct color profile for each one of them. Actually, it's very simple. When now we have ACES, we have here a color space that didn't exist before. And you have this auto button. And well, I don't know why exactly, but with auto, it should work every time. And I just find out that it really doesn't. It must work, it works most of the time, not always, and it should work every time. So now I just set everything by hand every time just to make sure. But I'm going to show you what happens if you don't do it. Never trust an automatic system. I'm sure they're going to make it much better because the guy from Redshift are very talented, but still it's an automatic system. I mean, you have to think about what you're going to do. So I'm going to load our albedo texture. This go to the diffuse, okay, diffuse color. I'm going to load the roughness. Roughness is going to the reflection roughness, okay. The metalness is pure white. So that means I don't need it. Quixel provide that, but you don't need to use it because here in Redshift, we just need to take the Fresnel type to metalness and put the metalness to the full 1 value. Okay, and now it's a metal object. Okay, for the normal, I'm going to plug in the bump map. Let's load it here in texture input, and then we're going to put that overall bump input. Okay, so I went a bit fast because this is not the point. Just to show you, every one of them is in auto mode. Okay, now I'm going to put that on the side. Let's use the render view. And already I don't need the LUT here. I'm going also to go to progressive render. Okay, so this is my shading ball. And you could think, okay, well, looks cool. Why not? It's a bit bright. The bump map is a bit weird, but okay, maybe that works. And then you would just take here and maybe put some ramp node on that, or try to tweak the color and so on. Maybe you're going to change the bump map and so on. No, actually this is dead wrong, and you will see how it's dead wrong. So let's go here. I'm going to add to take a snapshot of this so we will be able to compare. So when you have a color texture going to the diffuse color, you need to put it in sRGB. So you go to File, IO for file input output. You're going to choose sRGB. Usually, the auto mode works pretty well for this one. Okay, so I could leave it in auto, but let's make it full manual, so sRGB. Then this one is very important. You need to go to File IO and set it to RAW, because we don't need the sRGB color profile, which has a gamma ramp inside, a gamma curve. Okay, we don't want that. We want to use a pure black and white value. I'm not going to explain that because that would take the whole hour or even more, but you need to set it to RAW. And only doing that, we're going to have a drastic change. You can see how much different it is. I mean, you can't really compare before and after. This one looks already much better, much closer to the original in Quixel. But we're not finished, because this one is also very important. It's even more important than this one. And this one should be set also in RAW. Okay, and now I'm going to have the whole thing. I'm going to refresh because sometimes, yeah. And this is the real material. Okay, let's compare it to the old one. You can see how much this is different. I mean, this is not a slight difference. This is totally different material. So really need to be careful about that, because yeah, the auto mode doesn't really work. So every time I'm setting that by hand. Actually, it should work because there is roughness inside. There is some rules so that the render engine is going to guess which kind of texture, when it's going to be plugged there and so on. But if you do it by hand, you will never make any mistake, because you just know. Okay, and the rule is easy. Everything that's color going to the diffuse color is sRGB. Everything else, roughly, is raw. Okay, except when you're using some EXR or HDR image. For example, a DOM map for our DOM map picture. So let's see here, the DOM light. And here in the texture, you will see we have also an auto. So that works most of the time. But if you really want to make sure, you're going to auto and then file AO, you're going to choose Scene Linear Rec 709 sRGB. Okay, this is because this is 32 bits per channel, EXR image. Okay, everything else, which is color, you will need to use sRGB, and all the technical maps, so the roughness, the bump, displacement, and so on, will be using RAW. Okay, so that's easy to remember after all. Color sRGB, technical RAW, everything that's HDR or OpenEXR, Scene Linear Rec 709. Okay, so I simplify a bit It's a bit more complicated than that, but here in that case, you have 99% of the user case scenario. Okay, and let's just finish with the dome light. I'm going to, no, I'm going to load one image which does have a difference. So let me check. It's the sky is on fire. So it's going to load it. Okay, so this is an image which has some very strong. Okay, here you can see here. Let's see here if I go to scene linear rec 709. If I go to auto, yeah. So you see it changed, and here it's not. There is a very dim difference, but there is something you can see here. The red value, yellow value are not right. When you go to the rec 709, it looks more natural. If I decrease the intensity, you can see it's better. Let's go back to auto. Yeah, you see, this is, I mean, so yeah, never trust the automatic system. Just use the good value because it makes a difference. So for the dome light, it's well, it's important, but it's not as the problem is not as bad as the roughness. For the roughness, you really should be careful about your color profile here. Okay, so that's it for this this one, and I would say it's almost the most important subject, because if you don't set your texture right, they're not going to work ever. Ready? So be careful with that. Okay, so let's see now how to export for After Effects. There is a few things to be careful with. Maybe we do have some question,
Yeah,
Maximus?
we have one question. Normally, when you're working in commercials or something like this, they are really how do you call it? The client normally really picky with their brand color, right? And sometimes
Yes.
you have to hit like the exact brand color. Do you have a best method to hit an exact brand color with an ACES CG workflow, Lionel?
Yes, yes. There is actually. If we go back to the bunny, yeah, we have the neutral light. Let's load it. And I just overexposed this one. So let's go back here. And yes, about the here, this texture. So if I want to have because this color is interpreted by the ACs and so on. So you have a color profile which has been provided quite recently. If I go there to edit shader graph, let's see it here. Color checkout texture. In color space here, you can see I'm in sRGB because this is the diffuse color, makes sense. If I change here in the file IO, you have, actually it's in the ACs, I think, yeah, the invert ACs SDR1 video. And this one, I'm going to reload. Yeah, this one is going to be more faithful to the original because it's going to invert the color transform we're adding at the end. Okay, so let's see the original file, the texture, I mean. Where did I put it? I think it's in the Redshift bunny. I don't remember where I put it. Put it in text. Okay, yes. Yeah, in text folder, of course. And this is the real one. So let's hide this one. Let's hide this one also. Let's go back here. And yes, it's still interpreted by, there is still too much light going on. So I'm going to decrease the intensity. But it's more faithful to the original color.
Cool. Yeah. If I may add something, I think if you are using Magic Bullet Suite as well, there's a tool called Magic Bullet Looks, and inside Magic Bullet Looks, there's a tool called the color remap. And actually, working with Looks, you can set the input and output into ACES to be able to work in ACES as well. And in the color remap tool, you can like upload a sample color to your library if you have like if you're working with a brand like that has like specific color, and then you can just simply use your how do you call it, eyedropper tool to pick that color, and the color remap will just remap that particular color to the color that you pick. It's just an additional information, Lionel. Hope you don't mind.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there is some, actually it's always a problem in 3D because it depends on the lighting. Here, of course, the color are shifted anyway because we have some red wall, green wall, and so on. But this is one of the way to stick to the brain color. I'm very, again, I'm oversimplifying. It's oversimplified. It's more complicated than that, but I don't have much time to explain that. That's kind of quick and dirty way to achieve this this result. Okay, so now let's see how we're going to export. Yeah, the problem exporting our texture. So let's go back here to sRGB because I want to have the full ACES behavior. So yeah, maybe let's go back here to this example. Also, I'm going to hide this. Okay, this is maybe a bit extreme. Okay, so obviously those lights are very, very bright. Okay. If you're going to save this image, you can save it as it is, as a PNG, and you're done. Okay, no problem. You're going to send it to someone, it's going to work. But if you want to do some color correction on this, and maybe you want to add some glow here on the highlight, on the light on the ceiling, especially this one, which is obviously very bright. And actually, if we go to control to see our color, the real color on the left, you can see it's 255, 255, and so on. In floating point, it's 2831, so it's very bright. So we want to take advantage of that. If I'm going to save this, this is where it gets dangerous. I'm going to save, for example, just a PNG for a starter. In Redshift, here you have two buttons, the Compensate for ViewTransform. This one should be checked if you want just to bake the color transform in your file. But if you're going to bake the color transform, you won't be able to do real color correcting. Okay, it's okay to save the image as it is, but not for color correcting. And we'll see why. So let's keep it checked, which is the default behavior. I'm going to save. I'm going to save it. I'm going to create a new, just not to confuse my test. And let's call it bunny baked. Okay, in PNG, 8-bit per channel, and so on. Okay, so let's go. Yeah, also I've made some change right. Yeah, I'm going to delete that. Okay, don't mind that. I'm going to hit render. It's going to render very fast. And you can see something already weird happening. This is not the same color as here. And then when it's finished, it's going to go back to this color. This is the compensate for ViewTransform. Okay, this option, it's compensating for the picture viewer in Cinema 4D because it doesn't have the same color profile as the render view. Okay, and this is a problem because even though we have the same result as here, all the color transform are baked in, meaning that we have lost all the information we have here. So let's go to After Effects. I'm going to restart new project. I want to, well, let's keep it in 30. Well, it has no sense like that. Okay, this is the default behavior. And now if I'm going to import my bunny, let's put it there. Okay, looks good, huh? But of course, if I go to the info, we can see here our light are not really bright. So we have lost the extra information that we had before. Okay, so you would think you just need to save to OpenEXR to 32-bit per channel. Okay, so I'm going to save it again. So now it's 32 bits. It's saving again. Again, we're going to have the compensate for view. So it's going to change the color, are going to shift at the end. Okay, and we're back to the right color. Let's go to After Effects. Now I'm going to import this EXR, this one. I'm going to put the project in 32-bit. I'm going to put that inside here. And I do have my picture like it should. But if you take a look here at the light, it's still wrong. We don't have the color. Nothing is exceeding 1. So nothing is beyond the white, even though it should. So if I use now exposure, it's not going to work if I decrease the exposure. This is wrong, okay? Because it's only 8-bit per channel. It's not 32 bits. Even though my project is 32 bits, the EXR is capable of 32 bits per channel. It's not working because it has been baked in, okay? So that's a problem because if I want to use some real tool, some real color correcting tool, it's not going to work, and we're not working in the ACES color space. So let me show you how you should do it. You must do it actually, if you want to do some real color correcting. In Redshift here, we're just going to deactivate here the compensate for ViewTransform. And then we're going to change here the view to raw, and it's going to look horrible, okay? But that's normal because we're going to have the raw render, so we can color correct it in After Effects using OpenColor.io. So I'm going to now to save, and let's call it raw. In OpenEXR, you do that only with OpenEXR. You're not going to do that with PNG. You need to have 32-bit per channel. So let's render. Now you will see that the render is it's not going to shift at the end because we are not compensating for the view transform. So it looks like, I mean, it's horrible. But now let's go to After Effects. I'm going to load this one. And if I put it here, it still looks like crap. Okay, so now it gets more complicated. And we will see that in detail next week, but I'm going to show quickly, so don't worry, we're going to see that more in depth next week. You need to use OpenColor.io and to do a few stuff. Then first, we need to have our project in 32-bit per channel, okay, and working space in sRGB, and linearize working space. Again, I'm going fast. We will see that better next week. Still look like crap. I'm going to add now adjustment layer. I'm going to call it OpenColor OCIO. and I'm going to use the Open Color IO plugin. So it's a free plugin that you can download from the Fnord website, and it's going to add to render After Effects capable of working with ACs. So I'm going to put the Open Color IO here. Again, this is the fast workflow. We will see that in more detail next week. I'm going to fetch my, it's in program data, it's in Redshift, data, OCIO. So this is the config embedded with Redshift. I'm going to change here to display. Input space is going to be ACs CG, and the view ACs SDR. So it still doesn't look right because we're still not finished. We're going to use now a color profile converter. This one, you add it to the end. Input profile is going to be sRGB. It's a very weird workflow. I agree. We're going to sRGB and then linearize. And finally, we do have the color right. Okay. So why did we take all that trouble? Because if we go to the info and we look here, we can see here, this is the right color transformed, meaning that it has been transformed and it looks all right. And here, if I deactivate this layer, we have the original stuff with very, very bright highlight. I don't know if you can see here the RGB. We have 62 in red, and the other one we have, well, in blue, we have just a huge number. Okay, so that means now I can put whatever that's going to be between those two. Let's call it CC, so it's color correction and another adjustment layer. If I now add an exposure, we're back on track, meaning that I can lower the intensity and it's going to work again just like it should. And if I go higher, it works exactly like it should, exactly like it would in Cinema 4D with Redshift. You can see the color are working. So I can change the gamma, decrease to have something more dull image, or maybe the opposite. I'm going to increase the gamma and you can see it works. We have the color behavior we want. What's even more interesting is if we use, for example, a glow, the glow effect, it's going to work very well. If I put the threshold to 100%, and we're going to use the A and B color, and of course, decrease the intensity because it has some crazy value here. So we're going to decrease the intensity to 0.1 and decrease the radius. Also, I'm going to add this one. Okay, and now you can see the glow. If I decrease the glow radius here, and the intensity, yeah, you have to, it's very, very sensitive. If I decrease the glow radius to 5, now it's more pronounced here. And well, that's it. Okay, so yeah, next week we will see how to do some real compositing using this trick. This is the basic. Just to conclude, actually, if you can really live with the PNG, the original PNG. If I go back to the PNG here, if I just uncheck here the color correction, I put back the PNG on top of it, you can see it's exactly the same. The difference is I have much more room to control the image. And that's going to be very important when we will have multiple paths using AOV. And also, if you just want to decrease the intensity, well, if you want to tweak anything, it's not ready to work with a simple PNG baked in. Here we have all the freedom we want to achieve whatever result we want. And yeah, well, that's it. Just in time in the hour.
Wow, thank you so much, Lionel. And that's such a massive, great tips that we all can benefit from that. Especially the setting that you are showing us how to do when the image
Yeah,
is intended for a future how do you call it, further color grading in different app.
yeah,
That is a really nice one.
exactly. Because this is, I would say, just a teaser for next week. This is just
Yeah,
the beginning of what we can do.
that is really cool. Well, thank you so much, Lionel, for showing us this great tips. And I think all the audience agree with me that these are such a great and helpful tips for setting your color management inside Cinema 4D and After Effects. It's really great. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you
And
very much.
yeah, if you don't mind, let me grab the screen
Go ahead.
and I'll make myself presenter then. So, yeah, seems like we're coming to an end, and we will be back again next week. Again, and Lionel will be joining us next week, and he will take us through the different compositions with the After Effects. So basic comp and advanced comp, all within After Effects. And again, it all will be done in ACES. And then a week after that, we'll switch gear and we'll go into color grading. And the weeks after, we'll close it with a professional monitoring for colors. And again, let me point you out to our YouTube page channel. And if you want to watch the recording of this webinar, you can simply go there. Soon after we finish with the webinar, we'll upload it to YouTube for the re-watching the webinar purpose. And if you miss the previous webinar or all the other webinars, for example, the multi-dimensional MoGraph Lionel was delivering last month, you can also watch them here in Maxon Training Team channel in YouTube. And don't forget, if you want to test your knowledge about Cinema 4D or any of the Red Giant products, Trapcode, Magic Bullet, or Universe, you can simply go to maxon.net/certifications and check out the future events in maxon.net/events. And yeah, again, check out Lionel's courses in Udemy. He has 4 different courses, and you can follow the link that I've provided in the chat of the webinar window. So that's all for this week. And I hope everybody enjoys the sessions, and we'll see again next week. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.